Well, as such, there are no latest updates on the talks, as the talks are very, very sensitive, and it would be wrong for us to hypothetically probably believe the hearsay. But what we know of now, and what I could say is a big breakthrough. For me, the big breakthrough was when there was a temporary ceasefire that was achieved, because that was the first step to success. The second was the agreement between the Iranian side and the American side to come to Islamabad, where Pakistan is hosting these historic talks. Third big development that I believe that we know of now is that these are direct talks taking place. If you recall, the previous processes, especially the one in Geneva, where Omanis were actually mediating the talks, that was like messaging between the Iranians as well as the Americans. So it was like one team in a separate room, the other team in a separate room with the mediators just running to and fro. The big thing that was in focus right now was whether both sides would sit across the table face to face for direct talks. Because, yes, you can have different sorts of models for negotiation, and there is no harm in that. But when it comes to a war that we're talking about before the ceasefire, which had gone to an extent that it would have resulted, had it continued, it would have resulted in a great human catastrophe, or probably in a way that it would have been very difficult to control had other players also been involved in this war. So I guess at this juncture, if these direct talks are happening face to face, which already Al Jazeera, BBC, CNN, and even PTV is now um, actually talking about, that's a big breakthrough, because we must understand that America doesn't never recognized Iran, and Iran never recognized America. So there were no direct talks. And from this, you could also assume now that the previous supreme leader, um, under his leadership, was decided that there would be no direct talks with the United States. And now with this next supreme leader, you can now and these direct talks actually now suggest that there is flexibility on both sides, from the United States as well as from the Iranian sides, that they are ready now to sit across the table face to face to work on the framework that they are already decided to speak on. That is the 10-point agenda that Iran has, and a framework that the United States has had presented earlier, the 15-point. So for me, that's a big success. And that is yet another step towards a comprehensive outcome from these talks that we're expecting. A lot of hopes are attached, but yes, we do realize that there are so many issues. Probably a breakthrough would probably mean that uh, you know some economic aspect is achieved from both sides, because what this war had actually now thrown the world into was an economic crisis. The oil prices, the energy markets, all were going volatile because of the Strait of Hormuz disruption, which was not the case before the 27th Feb, before the attacks on Iran, nor was it a moot point in the Geneva talks. In these talks, I believe a breakthrough would probably mean that initially, probably a Strait of Hormuz is opened, and it is open for all without any toll being taken by Iranian side. And for Iran, I think the bare minimum would be that they get some sorts of relief in the sanctions imposed on them. So I guess there is a lot that needs to be talked about, but we shall wait for these talks to conclude and for some official statement from the Pakistani side who are mediating the talks, or from the Iranian or the American side. Where I see this going in a very positive manner, because hopes are attached, and the fact that the vice president of the United States is visiting Pakistan and is leading the talks in itself suggests that the United States is also very serious in achieving some sort of exit from this war. We do realize that America, although they had, attacked Iran on the influence of Israel, but later they have realized during this war that none of their own allies were part of it. They tried pressing on the United Kingdom. President Trump had asked the NATO to help, but none of them had come. And it reached to the point that President Trump said that whoever wants the oil should go and just get it, which in itself was depiction of the fact that United States is isolated in this war. Also, domestically, the prices at the pump in Washington, New York, across America for the gas prices were increasing, and that would not go down well, for a common American. The mortgage rates were also being increased, which also does not translate well for the Trump administration. We must not also forget that this is a year for midterm elections. So I guess there has to be an exit strategy. And that's why it makes me say that these talks will go towards some positive end. Maybe, um, you know, a success would mean that the temporary ceasefire will continue for a certain amount of weeks. Maybe that could be the agreement reached in Islamabad before a proper framework to negotiate on the 15-point presented by the United States and the 10-point agenda presented by Iran would come into actual, negotiation mode. Also, I believe that after these talks conclude, whether they conclude in Islamabad or there are further rounds, which of course should be the case because there are so many issues between both the countries, that's Iran and the United States, they are adversaries, that it will take a long time for them to reach a common ground on most of the points that have been presented by each side. I do believe that it's going to be a very different uh, globe, a very different West Asia, especially. And when I say this, I mean that things have changed so rapidly after 27th Feb, after the United States and Israel had attacked Iran, and the way Iran had strategically used as leverage by disrupting the Strait of Hormuz that did send ripples across the world, that now probably they are in in an advantage, I would say, a strategic advantage that they have in these talks. And I do believe that Iran would be able to extract something for its own economic progress. It could be, you know, unfreezing those assets, probably raising, relief in some sorts of sanctions, probably having an agreement reached through which Iran could export its oil and gas. These are some of the factors that I believe that Iran would be able to extract. As for the Gulf states, I would believe that it's going to be very different now because in the asymmetric warfare that Iran had put up in this conflict against the United States and Israel, I think the Gulf states will also now think about their own security, and they may not just rely on the security or the defense from the United States. And I do believe that we will probably see some countries now taking the lead in providing that security apparatus in West Asia. It could be Turkey, it could be Egypt, it could be Pakistan, or it could be a combined force. I don't know. But yes, I do believe that there will be a lot of changes in this region.